Let's get started. I would like to introduce KYZEN's own Wayne Raney.
Thank you, Sherry. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your day to spend with me going over this material. Today, the topic that we'll be covering is vacuum degreasing processes with modified alcohol. If you want to view a tech-to-tech session on hydrocarbon, then please go to our tech-to-tech webpage and you can see the session presented by KYZEN's own Will Sweet. The topics that we'll be covering today are trends when it comes to cleaning, advantages of cleaning with modified alcohol, soils cleaning, basic machine operation. We'll also touch on compatibility, rust management, soil management, and acid formation. First, we'll talk about trends towards green cleaning. Industry is moving away from perchloroethylene, trichloroethylene, and N-propyl bromide. The open-top vapor degreasing segment of the cleaning has been slowly going away. Switching to closed systems are better for the ozone, has better personnel safety, and fewer overall emissions. These closed vacuum degreasing systems have the advantages of containing all the solvent within the machines. Nothing escapes. Therefore, they're called closed systems. Vacuum systems trap all the oils and coolants that are cleaned from the parts, thus excellent soil management. Closed vacuum systems also recycle the solvent, or it consistently cleans itself up. These closed systems are also safer for the operators. Some other advantages of a vacuum system with modified alcohol is that it has the ability to clean polar as well as non-polar soils. It doesn't use water, it's not a HAP, VOC is low, and it also uses very little solvent, thus the process cost is low. If you think of polar and non-polar, polar has a charge and non-polar does not. You see the non-polar substances or oil floating on top of the water layer. Hydrocarbon is able to remove oily or non-polar substances, and modified alcohol has the affinity to remove water-based materials or polar substances. Polar materials have an affinity for water, whereas hydrocarbons do not. Here's a list of soils that are cleaned from substrates using modified alcohol. Again, modified alcohol's cousin hydrocarbon has a tendency to only clean the nonpolar, or the materials listed on the right. But modified alcohol will clean polar as well as nonpolar soils. So everything from greases and oils to water-soluble coolants and synthetic oils. This is an example of a vacuum degreaser. It gives some kind of scale to the machine that we've been talking about. Inside this machine, the vacuum is approximately 1/10 of atmospheric pressure. During the process, the door is shut and the system is at vacuum. Inside the machines are these tanks and chambers, typically 2 wash tanks, a still, a condenser, water separator, CP tank, and a wash chamber. A normal cycle will go like this. Tank 1 will first perform its wash process into the wash chamber, followed by tank 2. Next is a vapor step, followed by a vacuum dry. During the entire process, the modified alcohol is under a vacuum. This is a typical pressure temperature chart of the modified alcohol. As the pressure goes up, then so does the boiling point. So pressure and temperature are directly proportional. Not shown here is the boiling point of modified alcohol at atmospheric pressure. That's approximately 161 Celsius. As the temperature of the part goes up, then it has a tendency to flash off the fluids. This is important to note, especially in the drying phase where the deepest vacuum is drawn. As the pressure drops even farther with an extremely hot temperature, superior drying is accomplished. The fast pressure drop is like quickly going to Mount Everest where the pressure is low and thus the boiling point is even lower. Modified alcohol is compatible with a wide range of materials as shown on the chart on the left. Also, sometimes you have thousands of parts that are tightly packed together. Even with this case, you're still able to obtain complete drying. With very high temperatures and an extreme vacuum, you can dry the parts with the most intricate of designs and inaccessible locations. No matter the part geometry, modified alcohol can get into the smallest of crevices. Also, again, when talking about compatibility, even aluminum and soft yellow metals are compatible as shown on the chart on the right. As far as elastomers go, this is a list of materials that are recommended, not recommended, or require additional testing. Machine companies usually mainly use this list to make sure that the materials of construction are compatible with modified alcohol. If you're putting elastomers through the cleaning process, then we recommend you sending the material into our lab for further testing of the solvent. as well as to address temperature concerns of the elastomers. I want to touch a little bit about maintenance of the modified alcohol solvent in the vacuum degreasing process. First, we'll talk about oil contamination in the solvent and soil management. Then we'll go on to rust prevention or corrosion protection. We'll finally touch on how to combat acid formation in the modified alcohol. When the machine is consistently cleaning heavy oils and coolants off your parts, your solvent can quickly be saturated. In extreme cases, it can affect the cleaning. When talking soil management, your machine is always distilling the solvent and always cleaning itself up. But there are things you can do to help maintain the cleanliness. Even when you're not cleaning the parts, keep the machine running in idle mode. Keeping the still running is key, so keep it on overnight and over the weekend. During the off hours, you can also program your machine to do a total distillation. We'll touch on rust prevention. The RP is basically a waxy material that's mixed with the modified alcohol that's applied as a fine film on the parts as they exit the machine. I'd like to point out that usually 3% in the winter months and 7% concentration in the summer months is really sufficient to fully protect the parts from corrosion. Just remember not to use the vapor degreasing step after the RP process, because the condensing action of the vapors on the relatively cool parts will remove some of the RP from the parts. To maintain proper concentration and control corrosion protection, you'll have to measure the NVR for non-volatiles in your RP or CP tanks. There are instruments which can measure the NVR in your CP tank, and this NVR correlates to the concentration of RP. The last item we'll touch on is acid formation. You need to test for acid formation in your wash bath. The reason is that chlorinated and sometimes sulfonated oils can decompose in your still. When these materials break down, they combine with hydrogen present from the water molecules. Then hydrochloric and sulfuric acid can form. These acids have low boiling points and will eventually evaporate and spread throughout the system. This acid can corrode the heat exchanger and also the vacuum pump, which is the most expensive part of your vacuum degreaser. A test kit is offered, which contains all the materials necessary to test for acid and what to do in case it's formed in the machine. With this kit, you can take a sample from the machine, you'll mix it with a predetermined amount of sodium hydroxide and water, and then test with litmus paper. If acid is present, then the kit will let you know how much booster or acid neutralizer to add from the results of this test. Some key things to take away from this presentation is modified alcohol has the ability to clean polar and non-polar soils, which are the majority of soils. Cleaning with vacuum degreaser is an environmentally friendly and responsible way to clean, especially when put up against open top degreasers. Vacuum degreasing with modified alcohol is safe for personnel. There are ways to test for and mitigate acid formation, as well as to maintain the concentration of your RP. Soil management is simple with constant distillation and water separation. This is all I have today. I'd like to turn it over to Sherry. Be sure to join her next week on Wash Bath Life Basics. I'd like to thank you again for your time. Now I'll turn it back over to Sherry.
Thanks, Wayne. If you would like to discuss this topic further, please contact your local KYZEN representative or send an email to tech@kaizen.com, and we will have one of our cleaning experts schedule a follow-up with you as soon as possible. Again, we thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.